Hi everyone, my name is Occy, and today I'm going to be taking you through the basics of Genji. So let's get right into it. Genji is one of my favorite characters in Overwatch, mainly because he has a lot of movement abilities and a lot of mix-ups and different ways you can play him. But we'll start with the basics. So you have his basic attack, which is 3 ninja stars he throws out. Now he'll throw those in one after the other. So if you move your aim, they'll end up in different spots from each other, so it's important to keep that in mind when tracking people with this. He also has a secondary attack on his right click, where he throws out all 3 stars all at once in a cone. And this is especially useful for when you're fighting people up close, because you'll notice the fire rate is a lot faster than the single stream. So if you're fighting people up close and you know you could hit them with all of the shurikens, it's going to be a lot faster to kill them than if you're sitting there pumping them into them one at a time. Now, for his first ability, it's his dash, and this just takes him straight forward in whatever direction he has to be looking in. You can also go straight up with it, or straight down if you're in the air, or any combination diagonally, whichever way you go and will go. If you dash through an enemy or multiple enemies, it will deal 50 damage to them, just a base 50, it's always going to be 50. And that's going to be 50 regardless of whether he has his ult out or not, which we'll get to in a little bit. Now, a second ability is the Deflect, and for about 2 seconds after activating it, he will deflect almost all incoming damage back to wherever you're aiming at. Now, there's a few things that you cannot deflect, namely Symmetra's turrets, either firing modes of Symmetra's gun, Zarya's particle beam cannon, and Winston's Tesla gun. And I'm pretty sure that's all the damage sources that you cannot deflect. You also technically cannot deflect melee, although you can block melee apparently. So Reinhardt's hammer, you can block it with your deflect, you're just not going to be able to reflect that damage back onto him. And finally, of course, you've got his ult, where he pulls out the Dragon Blade for about 8 or 9 seconds there, and you got your slices, and this can hit multiple targets. I just didn't line it up properly there. So, what can you do with Genji? Oh, actually, I completely forgot. His passive, by the way, is Cyber Agility, which allows him to climb up walls just like Hanzo, and he also gets a double jump, which can be used it's basically an air jump. Think of it that way. So like if I fall off this edge, I can jump once in the air as opposed to twice. But the first jump is just a straight jump from the ground, obviously. So, with that all out of the way, now that we know all of his abilities, what can you do with Genji? Well, there's a lot of interesting things. First off, I want to go over his movement. Genji is a very mobile character, and you're often going to spend a lot of time jumping around in the air, even when you're in combat, throwing out these stars, and trying to avoid fire with your double jump, juking people out. You know, maybe jump this way and then jump back that way. Pretty basic stuff for a beginner, obviously. But there's some interesting things to keep in mind with his movement. You can chain a double jump into a wall run into another air jump if you want. So double jump, wall run into another air jump. And this is great for getting you a lot of height on people. So you can go up here, wall run into a jump, and you're back up on top here. Obviously, I probably could have just, like, wall run up on top of that, but you get the idea. In maps like King's Row or Watchpoint Gibraltar, where you have a lot of verticality, that's going to lend itself to a lot of interesting ways to get around the map. And then keep in mind that you can also use his dash as well to cover distance and cross even bigger gaps, essentially. So movement is very important with Genji. But even more important than that is canceling. Now, if you're not sure, if you don't know what canceling is, basically, it's where an animation completes later than the actual action that it's taking. So like a reload animation would complete a little later than the bullets are actually put into your gun. And as a matter of fact, to demonstrate this, I'm going to pull out Reaper real quick, because this is most apparent on Reaper. So, take a look at my ammo count down in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. You should see a little 8 out of 8. And that's the ammo count for the ammo in my guns. So just watch the ammo count and see how quickly it refills all the way back up to 8, as opposed to when the animation for the reload ends right now. See, so I reload 8, but the animation still has to complete. Now that's an awful lot of dead space for the animation. Like, if I just show you there, if I reload, there's a lot of dead space, but if I reload into a melee, I basically cancel that extra dead space animation, and I get basically a couple of extra frames before I can start firing again. And I also get a little damage. Now obviously, that melee animation is not going to take too much off the actual reload animation, but it's a good idea because you're essentially stringing extra damage on that you otherwise wouldn't have, since you can't shoot. Now this works with Genji for a lot of things, but it's not so much to do with his reload and more to do with his actual attacks. You notice there his reload, it's pretty more or less right as soon as the gauntlet covers back up. It's the extra end on the animation is the shurikens popping out of his hand, obviously. So if you wanted to, you could try and, throw in a melee like Reaper, but that's not really going to be necessary. What you can do, however, is comboing with your attacks itself. Now, the basic Genji combo is going to be a 3-hit punch of your shurikens, your melee, and your dash. And what that's going to look like is you're going to throw the 3 out, melee, and then dash forward. And the reason you do this is because you can do all 3 in super rapid succession. And if you're at close range, you're obviously going to be hitting all 3. Your melee is going to be connecting, and then you dash straight through, and you're going to string even more damage on top of that. So I'm going to try and show you on this training bot right here. Once again, it's the triple shurikens, a melee, and then a dash, all one after the other. And it kind of looks like this. And I'm not sure if I hit the dash on that, so we're going to just back up a second. I'm going to try it again on this guy. Ready? 1, 2. And yeah, there, see? That's almost all of his health bar gone, and I'm not sure. Let me see. They have 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 by half. No, 8 by 4. Each one of those little bars is 25, essentially. So 4 times 50. They have 200 health. So that's basically your standard attacker down to almost nothing with just this little combo. Boom, boom, boom. And then you can just finish them off, or even you just need one more shuriken after that. You just throw out the cone as they're trying to run away, or you turn around, and they're dead. You can also mix it up with the deflect. If you go boom, 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 and you're behind them and you turn around and deflect, and they panic and throw out a rocket or something at you, and you just get the easy splash on them. You can also combo this from the air. So let's say I'm on the air, coming down on this guy, boom. Throw out that cone, and then dash through them, instead of just landing on the ground normally like this. And you're not only going to disorient them, but you're going to string on an awful lot of damage. And even when your dash is on cooldown, you can also combo these together with the melee for that extra damage. Like, there's really no reason not to be trying to do that, because it's just so much burst damage, all on one on top of each other. Now, this can also be done with your normal attack as well. But it's generally not advisable to be using your normal attack in close quarters. Although, if you do happen to be using it, it can be viable. You obviously want to be using your cone, but the single strike can be viable, especially if you're going for those headshots. And that's another important thing on Genji. Well, it's important on all characters, but especially on Genji for that burst damage. His headshots are so strong. See, I just hit one single triple burst with these, and it took him down to the same health as our little combo there. The exact same amount, actually. So if you can hit your headshots on the shurikens, even just one, even just one, it's going to be doing a whole lot of damage to people, and it's going to be putting pressure on them and forcing them to retreat. This is especially good against characters like McCree, who, even though you're a close-range character, are generally going to outmatch you at close range because of the fan, the hammer, and the stun, obviously. If you're engaging a McCree who's kind of trying to chase you down, if you can throw out some of those shurikens, you can get like 1 or 2 headshots on him, and he's going to be a lot more careful when approaching you. And then if you can spam your cone from range, get even more damage on him, and then just dash through and take him out. Now, one other thing I want to talk about is the ult. When you have the ult up, don't be afraid to use your dash, because you get that dash back as soon as you kill someone. One of my favorite tricks to use with the ult, and I'll try and show you in a second, I just need to get some more kills on these guys so I can build my meter, is when I'm using my ult, I try and keep in mind with the dash that basically you want to swipe your sword first and then dash immediately after. Kind of like canceling the swipe into the dash. Now, like I mentioned before, the dash is not going to do any more than 50 damage, even when you're using your ult. So your ult's going to be doing a whole lot of damage with that sword swing, and it's going to be in a really wide arc. But your dash is still going to be doing 50 damage, but that's just extra damage that you're tacking on. Not to mention the fact that you're repositioning yourself and making it a lot harder for people to hit you. So if you see, I come in, swipe dash, swipe, oh, I didn't even hit it there. Here, we go, swipe dash, and I didn't hit it. So you see, you do have to get kind of the hang of the timing a little bit, because I was dashing a little bit before my swipe connected, which is also actually important to consider. And I'll actually pull up Reinhardt in a second to show you after I get my ult again. With swiping melee weapons, like Genji's sword and Reinhardt's hammer, they don't actually function the same as standard melee attacks, because unless I'm completely wrong in this, standard melee attack, basically it just generates the hitbox in front of you, and if anything's caught in that hitbox, it's gonna die. So let me give it a shot again here. You go swipe dash, there, see? Swipe dash, and not getting it on that one. Let's try this one. Swipe, and it's down. Oh well. But I'll come back to that. I want to go pull out Reinhardt to show you guys something. It's basically the same idea with Genji's sword, but it's a little easier with Reinhardt because he always has his hammer, obviously. So,
justice will be done.
More or less the same idea as Genji's sword. It's actually more or less the same speed as well. And here's the thing. You can hit people multiple times, well, not multiple times. You can hit multiple people with the same swing, as you can see there. And this applies to Genji's sword as well, because it has damage values throughout the whole entire swing, basically. The hitbox stays there for the whole swing. Now, the really interesting thing is, you can actually move your camera just like you would like if you're twisting your torso in real life with a sword, in order to swing the damage across the person you're trying to hit. So if I start my swing over here and swing the camera over to him, I'm actually going to be doing damage. And I can even go ahead and hit both of them like that, see? So that's something as well to keep in mind when you have Genji's sword, is you don't just zone in on one enemy and, you know, like hold your cursor over them as if you're throwing shurikens at their head. You know, if you swing your camera back and forth, especially when you're fighting large clumps of enemies, which you kind of want to be doing with Genji's ult, you're definitely going to be able to output a whole lot more damage and hopefully get those resets as well on your sword. Ideally, even if you don't kill a lot of people with your ultimate, although that's the idea, you really want to be getting those kills. If you output a lot of damage on a large group of enemies, you're just going to be able to come out and just start laying out with the shuriken alt fire. Get those cone attacks out there, and you're going to be able to kill people really, really well. Now, last thing I want to talk about is Genji's Deflect, and unfortunately, I can't really show you guys much of what you can do with Genji's Deflect in the training rounds, obviously, because these guys just shoot out tiny little pellets. But the main tip I have for Deflect is the thing that new players do when they have the Deflect up is they kind of panic. It's their panic button, and that's fine. The Deflect is a really good panic button for Genji. It's definitely viable to be used, you know, as a get out of jail free card. But when beginners are using the Deflect, they tend to go in and just throw it up, and they're like, oh crap, is it up, is it up, is it blocking? Good. And they don't really focus on where they're aiming the deflected shots. So if I'm a new player, I'm like, oh crap, my health is low, he's shooting at me, okay, I got it. And you see, I only like reflected one back at him. Now, the way to really take full advantage of Deflect is you want to anticipate when you're going to use it, when they're going to fire, and try and go for those headshots, the critical hits. And because see, the thing is, with the Deflect up, you really have all the time in the world to go for the headshots. You want to be going for headshots on Deflect as much as possible. Because in an ordinary scenario, you're both firing at each other, you're trying to dodge their shots and hit your shots as well. And you're basically trying to do two things at once. You're trying to dodge and keep yourself alive, as well as aim and hit them dead on. But with Deflect up, you don't have to dodge. In fact, you want their bullets to hit you, because that's what's going to give you the damage. And so you only have to think about one thing while you're deflecting, basically, which is aiming. And that's what you want to be doing. You want to be getting absolutely the most out of your deflect that you can. Especially when going up against someone like a Widowmaker or a Meeeeee. You want to take full advantage of those high-powered shots that they're throwing out. Throw them back at their heads. Even for like a Meeeeee ultimate, you know, sometimes Meeeeees don't hold their ultimate until it has full killing power. So you want to go for the head as much as possible with that deflect in order to get the maximum damage output and basically the max, you know, out of your skill, because it's got a lengthy cooldown. That's 8 seconds. Especially if you have your dash down, they're both 8 seconds long. And this is when Genji is most vulnerable. Obviously, all characters become vulnerable when they have their abilities on cooldown. But, you know, especially if you're in the middle of a fight, you dashed in, you used your shards, your shurikens, but you didn't manage to kill anyone, your dash is still on cooldown, you use your deflect. You know, you want to have an escape plan. And that's another thing, is always have a way out with Genji. He's very, very squishy, and you want to have some way to get away from people. Use that dash. Don't be afraid to use it to get out of the way, especially up against a character like Mei or Meeeeee, who's going to stun lock you and put you in a position where you can't do anything. You really want to be able to use that to escape the situation and keep yourself safe. Junkrat's trap, unfortunately, you cannot dash out of that. And that's one of the main things that you're going to have to watch out for with your movement as Genji, because that thing is just going to screw your day over. And the most you can do when you get caught in a trap is just deflect and hope nobody kills you, because your deflect actually is not going to last through the entirety of the trap most of the time. However, I do want to mention that with Zarya's ult, the black hole, you can use your dash to get out of that. So if you do find yourself caught in that, definitely use that dash to get out. Unless you have your deflect up and you think you can take damage for your team for a little bit, definitely try and do that, because that would be really useful if, say, Zarya is trying to combo her ult with a Pharah, and you happen to be in the front where the Pharah is aiming, and you're able to deflect that back out before dashing out. Then that's going to really help your team out and prevent, you know, damage from going on to them. So keep that in mind when you're caught in Zarya's ult. Maybe don't dash out immediately, but other than that, you definitely want to be using the dash to escape her ult. So basically, to review over the things I've said, you want to be going for headshots with this single fire. And it's ideally for long-range harassment, although you can definitely use it at close range if you're going for those headshots. Keep yourself jumping through the air, especially when you're in close quarters, because getting those headshots is going to be a lot easier if you're in the air and you're aiming down at people. It's just how it works, because when you're above somebody, their head hitbox is going to be more visible to you, and their body hitbox is going to be less visible. So it's going to be much more likely that you're going to be hitting that head instead of the body, which is what you want to be doing. This also works for the cone attack, although generally when you're going to finish off an enemy, you don't really need to worry about headshots too much, although it's a good idea to practice that. Get your combos down with Genji. That's the main thing, is the combos. Getting this 1, 2, 3. That's huge damage right there. If you can successfully get that against someone, even if you don't kill them, they're mortally weakened. They have to go for a health pack, they have to retreat, or they will be finished off by one of your teammates. So just boom, boom, boom. So fast, and it's super, super effective. Practice doing it from the air too, if you want. Boom, boom, ba-da-da. Dead. And that's the main thing about Genji. You can also combo, keep in mind, into ba-da-da, into deflect. Sorry, I didn't get it very well there. If you want. Like, for example, if you dash through a Meeeeee, they generally will turn around and try and flashbang you. So if you ba-da-da, and then deflect, get that flashbang, and then throw the shurikens out. The combos are the main thing where Genji is going to shine. And then, of course, your mobility. making use of that double jump and the wall climb and the dash all together. He has so many options for mobility, so many mix-ups, and reflect for snipers. So, it's so good for even just crossing an area. Like if there's a sniper up there and I'm trying to cross and get over to there, I could jump, boom, and then dash, and then I'm safe, and I've deflected, you know, her main shot. And even if she does try and shoot me, she's not really going to be able to get off a full powered second shot on me in the time that I'm crossing her sightline. And last but not least, with the ult, try and get those double hits, and then also try and dash through after your sword swipe. Boom, boom, like that. One final tip for the ult is you do not want to be deflecting towards the end of the ult. Now, it's fine to deflect during the ult for sure, but you really don't want to deflect at the end of the ult for the simple reason that it has to do with animations and animation canceling. If your deflect is still up and your ult ends, it will actually cut off the deflect duration and end it prematurely and for the sword sheathing animation, and I'll demonstrate that right here. I have the sword out, and I'm just going to wait for it to go down. And I go about here, deflect, and then see? It cancels the animation, and that's really not something you want to have because, number one, it cuts short the amount of time you could have used for deflect, and number two, you're going to be coming out of your ult with deflect on cooldown, which is not good because generally Genji takes at least a fair bit of damage during his ult, and if you want to survive at the end of it, you want to have that deflect up, especially since your dash might be on cooldown from all that running around you did during the ult. So you want that deflect up so that you can use it to make a quick getaway. So generally use the deflect more towards the beginning of the ult. And one other thing to do with the ult, which you might have seen me do in the ult before the deflect one there, is you can cancel out of the end of the ult animation, with a dash. So let me just build this back up here real quick to show you guys. One more bot ought to do it. So I get the ult up, boom. There you go, see that dash? Leaves them very weak. And then I dash at the very end of the ult in order to cancel the sheathing animation. And obviously, there can be downsides to that because your dash is then on cooldown after your ult, but it's especially useful if you need to finish off that enemy just out of reach, or if you're using it as an escape to, you know, get out of the way and save yourself after you've taken some fire while going in on the ult. So those are my Genji tips, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This is basically just the basic strategies and techniques you want to be using with Genji. I apologize if the training map bores you. I didn't really have any friends online at the moment to, you know, pull up and beat up and demonstrate my skills on. So these training dummies had to do. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something, more importantly. And I will see you guys in the next video.